The unspoken chapters of her double life. A husband's agonizing journey through discovering not just an affair, but a wife who had been living a completely separate, fully-fledged romantic existence, leading to the gut-wrenching realization that the woman he married was a stranger.
It started with a flicker, a tiny, almost imperceptible glitch in the otherwise flawless tapestry of our life. A life I'd meticulously woven for us, thread by painstaking thread, over a decade. A life that felt solid, unshakable, built on a foundation of whispered promises under starry skies and the quiet comfort of shared mornings. It's the kind of life you see in movies, the kind people envy, the kind that makes you feel like you finally figured it all out. And if you're digging this kind of raw, honest story, the kind that pulls you into the messy, beautiful, and sometimes brutal reality of relationships, then do us a solid and hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and share this with anyone who's ever felt their world tilt on its axis. Drop a comment down below too. I'm dying to hear your thoughts, to know I'm not alone in this echo chamber of doubt. Because right now, alone feels like my new address. The flicker was a misplaced receipt tucked inside her wallet. Not a grocery store receipt, not a gas station stub, but a tiny slip of paper from a high-end boutique I'd never heard of, dated 3 days before our anniversary. Flowers, it said, a significant amount. Odd, because I'd already bought her the ridiculously expensive antique necklace she'd been coveting for months. I remember showing it to her, the way her eyes lit up, the genuine surprise and joy. So who were the flowers for? A friend? A colleague? My mind, usually a well-ordered filing cabinet, started to churn through possibilities, each one less likely than the last. I almost tossed it, chalked it up to a forgotten gift, a surprise for someone else, maybe a sister's birthday I'd somehow missed. But the nagging feeling, that faint static on the line, wouldn't let it go. Her name is Sarah, or at least that's the name I've known her by for the last 12 years. 12 years. A lifetime, it feels like now. We met at a mutual friend's wedding. I was the best man, she was a bridesmaid. She had this laugh, a bright, infectious sound that cut through the polite drone of reception small talk. We danced, we talked for hours on the hotel balcony, and by the end of the night, I knew. It sounds cliche, I know, but it was that seismic, undeniable certainty. We were different. I was an architect, my life a rigid structure of blueprints and deadlines, a love for order and predictable outcomes. She was an artist, a painter, her world a vibrant chaos of color and emotion. It was the classic dichotomy, the fire and the ice, the grounded and the free spirit. And it worked. It worked beautifully. She brought color into my monochrome existence, and I gave her a steady anchor, a place to come back to when the world felt too overwhelming. We built a life in a quiet suburb outside of Denver, a house with a wraparound porch and a sprawling backyard where we planned to grow old. We had a dog, a goofy golden retriever named Max, who was more of a furry roommate than a pet. Our weekends were filled with farmers markets, hikes in the Rockies, quiet dinners, and the comforting rhythm of two lives intertwined. Or so I thought. The receipt. I kept it. A tiny, insignificant piece of evidence that felt monumental. I didn't confront her. Not then. I'm not confrontational by nature. I prefer to observe, to gather data, to understand the full picture before making a move. It's how I approach my projects, and apparently, it's how I approached my marriage. I started paying attention. Not in a suspicious, paranoid way, at least not consciously, more like noticing the details I'd previously overlooked. The way her phone was always face down, the extra time she'd take in the shower, the vague excuses for late nights at the studio, which was supposed to be closed by 6 p.m. She'd say she was lost in her work, waiting for inspiration to strike, just finishing up a piece. I'd nod, accept it, maybe bring her a cup of coffee. I was the supportive husband, the guy who understood the creative temperament. Then came the cryptic texts. Her phone, usually left casually on the counter, was now a fortress. When she'd left the room, it would vanish with her. One evening, while she was out for what she called a girls' night, a concept that was becoming increasingly frequent, I saw her phone light up on the coffee table, a message preview. I've always been a rule follower, a law-abiding citizen, but something in me snapped. It wasn't about snooping, it was about filling in the blanks, about understanding the missing pieces of the puzzle that was suddenly my own life. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum solo in the quiet living room. The preview read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget the gallery opening. You know how much it means to me." Gallery opening? She hadn't mentioned any gallery opening. Her own work? No, she hadn't had a solo show in years, not since before we bought the house. Whose gallery? Whose opening? And why the intimate tone, the unspoken intimacy of, "You know how much it means to me"? The next few days were a blur of anxiety and heightened awareness. Every casual touch felt charged, every smile a possible deception. I'd watch her across the dinner table, trying to find the lie in her eyes, the tremor in her voice. But she was Sarah, my Sarah, the woman who kissed me goodbye every morning, who held my hand during movies, who laughed at my terrible jokes. How could she be anything else? I started looking at her differently, dissecting her words, her actions, searching for the hidden meanings. The girls' nights became longer, more frequent. She'd come home smelling of a perfume I didn't recognize, a floral scent that was too sweet, too deliberate. She'd blame it on a friend's new fragrance. I'd nod, the knot in my stomach tightening. I'd try to initiate intimacy and she'd be tired or stressed or have an early morning. I chalked it up to the pressures of her art, the demanding nature of creation. I was so damn noble, so damn understanding. Looking back, I was a fool, a willing participant in my own delusion. One Thursday, she said she was going to a late-night art supply run. She wouldn't be back until close to midnight. The house felt too quiet without her. Max, sensing my unease, padded over and rested his head on my lap, his big brown eyes looking up at me with an unnerving sense of understanding. It was a stupid impulse, I know, a desperate, grasping move born out of sleepless nights and a gnawing suspicion. I drove to the art supply store. Her car wasn't there. I circled the block, the headlights cutting through the inky blackness of the suburban street. Nothing. Then I saw it. A familiar crimson sedan parked a few blocks away, half hidden in the shadows of a large oak tree. It was Mark's car. Mark, a friend, a fellow artist she'd met a few years ago. I'd met him a couple of times. He was intense, a bit of a ladies' man by reputation. Always had a smirk, a knowing glint in his eye. They'd occasionally collaborate on projects, or so she'd said. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a girls' night excuse. This wasn't an art supply run.
My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I sat there, frozen, my mind racing, trying to process this new, devastating piece of information. I saw her get out of Mark's car. She was wearing a different outfit, a sleek black dress I'd never seen before, heels clicking on the pavement. She looked different, vibrant, alive in a way I hadn't seen her in months, maybe even years. She was laughing, her head thrown back, a sound I recognized, but the context was alien. He put his arm around her, pulling her close, and she leaned into him, her hand resting on his chest. It was a gesture of casual intimacy, of shared comfort, of belonging, a belonging I hadn't felt from her in a long time. It was like watching a scene unfold from a movie I hadn't auditioned for, a movie where I was the unwitting extra. The image seared itself into my brain, a brand of betrayal. I drove home, the world outside my car window a smear of lights and shadows. Max greeted me with his usual frantic enthusiasm, but I barely registered him. I went straight to the bedroom, to our sanctuary, the place where we'd shared dreams and secrets. Her side of the bed was empty, the sheets cool. I sat down, the weight of what I'd seen crushing me. The receipt, the late nights, the cryptic texts, the unfamiliar perfume. It all clicked into place, a horrifying, cohesive narrative. She wasn't just having an affair. She was living a double life, a life I knew nothing about, a life where she was someone else, with someone else, her passions and desires seemingly unmet in our shared existence. The thought that I'd been so oblivious, so trusting, was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, followed by a wave of profound sadness. Who was she? Who was this woman who shared my bed, my home, my life, yet held so much of herself back? The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, felt like a ghost, a carefully constructed facade. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in my mind, dissecting every moment, every gesture. The way she leaned into him, the easy way he touched her. It wasn't a hurried, illicit encounter. It looked comfortable, established. I realized then that this wasn't new. This had been going on for a while. How long? The thought was unbearable. How many nights had she spent with him while I slept soundly, believing she was working late or with friends? How many shared smiles, shared touches, shared moments had been layered with this secret existence? The betrayal wasn't just about sex. It was about the fundamental dishonesty, the deep, gaping chasm of lies that had been growing between us, unnoticed by me. I felt a
she was. The Sarah I'd fallen in love with, the Sarah I'd built my life with, was a construct, a carefully curated image. And the real Sarah, the one who laughed in Mark's arms, was a stranger. The dawn was breaking, painting the sky in hues of gray and pink, a stark contrast to the darkness I felt inside. I heard her car pull into the driveway, the click of the lock, her footsteps on the porch. The sound was no longer comforting. It was the sound of an intruder in my own home. I didn't know what I was going to do or what I was going to say, but I knew, with a chilling certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again. I was standing on the precipice of a truth I wasn't sure I could bear. The bedroom door creaked open, and I braced myself. The soft glow of the hallway light spilled in, illuminating Sarah's silhouette as she stepped inside. She was still in the same black dress, her hair slightly mussed, her makeup a little smudged, but otherwise she looked fine, completely, utterly fine. That infuriated me more than anything. She didn't look like someone who had just emerged from a clandestine rendezvous. She looked like someone who had just finished a productive evening. Max stirred at the foot of the bed, let out a soft groan, and I could feel his silent inquiry. He knew something was wrong too. He always did. She paused, sensing my presence, my stillness. "Hey," she murmured, her voice a little husky. "Long night. Studio was crazy." She started to unbutton her dress, the delicate fabric whispering against her skin. I didn't move. I just watched her, a cold, analytical observer of a performance I was no longer buying a ticket for. "Studio?" I finally managed, my voice flat, devoid of the warmth that usually colored our interactions. She stopped, her fingers frozen on a pearl button. She turned, her expression shifting from casual fatigue to a flicker of surprise, then something else. Caution? A hint of guilt? It was hard to tell. Her eyes, usually so open and expressive, seemed to shudder slightly. "Yeah," she said, a little too quickly. "Just finishing up that commission. You know how it is." "No, Sarah," I said, my voice gaining a low, dangerous edge. "I don't know how it is. Not anymore." She took a step towards me, a tentative smile playing on her lips. "What are you talking about? You're up late." "I was waiting for you," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Waiting to hear about your night, the one at the studio." Her smile faltered completely. Her gaze flickered away, then back to me, a growing unease clouding her features. "It was productive, I told you. Did you? Because I took a drive tonight, Sarah." The silence in the room stretched, taut and suffocating. "A little drive, to that new art supply store you supposedly went to." Her breath hitched, her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw it, the raw, unvarnished panic. It was a fleeting moment, but it was there. "And?" she prompted, her voice barely a whisper. "Your car wasn't there." I let that sink in. But Mark's was, parked a few blocks away, under that big oak tree. The blood drained from her face, leaving her skin pale and almost translucent in the dim light. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. Her carefully constructed composure had shattered, revealing the terrified woman underneath. "I saw you," I continued, the words pouring out of me now, a torrent I couldn't dam. "I saw you get out of his car, in that dress, the one I've never seen before, laughing, leaning into him like it was the most natural thing in the world, like it was home." The last words were a choked gasp. She finally found her voice, but it was weak, reedy. It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Sarah?" I asked, the anger churning in my gut, hot and acidic. "Tell me, enlighten me, because from where I was standing, it looked a hell of a lot like my wife was having an affair with her colleague." The word felt alien on my tongue. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her features. "It started a few months ago. It was just a way to escape, to feel something again." "Feel what, Sarah?" I practically spat the words. "Excitement, thrills, something that wasn't good enough in our life, in our home?" She wrung her hands, her gaze fixed on the floor. "It wasn't about you. It was about me. I felt stifled, trapped. Your life, it's so ordered, so structured. Mine felt like it was just going through the motions. And Mark, he understood. He's lives in another man's arms because my life is too ordered? My voice was rising now, the controlled fury giving way to raw pain. My life, Sarah? The life we built?
The life you supposedly wanted? Is that what you're saying? That I'm not enough? That this house, this quiet suburb, are routines? That it's all just a cage? She finally looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. No, that's not what I mean. I love you, I do. You're my anchor. But sometimes I just needed to feel the wind, to feel free. And he offered that. It was just physical at first, and then it became more. And then she trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of her betrayal. And then what, Sarah? I pressed, my voice raw. And then you fell in love with him? Is that it? Did you wake up one morning and realized you loved him more than me? Did you plan our life around your secret dates? She shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. No, God, no, I love you. I got lost. I made a terrible mistake. A mistake? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. This isn't spilling a cup of coffee, Sarah. This is a fundamental betrayal of everything we are, of everything I thought we were. For how long? She swallowed hard, her gaze dropping again. About 7 months. 7 months. 7 months of lies. 7 months of her waking up next to me, kissing me goodbye, while her heart, her body, belonged to someone else. 7 months of shared meals, of comfortable silences, all underscored by this monumental deception. The sheer audacity of it, the calculated nature of it was staggering. I felt a physical wave of nausea. 7 months, I repeated, the words hollow. And you were going to just keep living this double life, waiting for me to find out or just hoping I never would? Did you ever plan on telling me? She hesitated, and that hesitation was a confirmation. I don't know. I was scared of hurting you, of losing you. You think this isn't hurting me, Sarah? I stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. You think seeing you with him, seeing the proof of your secret life, isn't ripping me apart? You talk about being stifled? What about me? I've been living a lie, Sarah. I've been living with a stranger. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she's gone. And I don't even know who you are anymore. Max whined softly and stood up, nudging my hand with his wet nose. I looked down at him, his eyes full of a concern that felt more genuine than anything I'd heard from Sarah tonight. You know, I said, my voice trembling, the thing that gets me the most, Sarah, it's not just the sex. It's the deception. It's the fact that you looked me in the eye day after day, week after week, month after month, and you lied. You actively, deliberately lied to me while I was here, thinking we were building something real, something lasting. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her shoulders hunched. I'm so sorry. I never meant to. I didn't know how to stop. You didn't know how to stop, I scoffed. Or you didn't want to stop. Because it sounds like you were enjoying it. It sounds like you found what you were missing. I stopped pacing, my gaze hardening. Who is Mark really, Sarah? Is he just some artist friend who offered you an escape? Or is there something more? Because the way you looked at him, it wasn't just a fling. It was connection. It was intimacy. She finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. He's a part of my life now. He understands my art. He understands me. In a way I felt like you didn't anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. You felt like I didn't understand you, I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. After 12 years, after everything we've shared, you felt so disconnected that you had to find it with someone else. Did you ever think about talking to me about it, Sarah? About saying, hey, I'm feeling a little lost, a little uninspired. Can we work on this together? No, of course not.
silent street. The suburban dream, the one we'd carefully curated, now felt like a hollow shell, a perfectly painted set hiding a void. So, you were with him tonight? At his place or somewhere else? She flinched. We went to his studio. He had some new pieces he wanted to show me. New pieces, I echoed, the sarcasm thick. And while you were admiring his new pieces, what else were you doing? Were you discussing your future together? Planning a life where I'm just the guy who used to be married to you? Stop it, she cried, her voice breaking. You're twisting everything. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Sarah? I demanded, turning to face her, my voice resonating with a pain that was both ancient and brand new. Tell me, because right now, all I see is a woman I don't recognize. A woman who has been living a secret life with another man for months. A woman who looked me in the eye and lied. Tell me, Sarah, what's the real story? Because I need to know. I need to know who I married. And I need to know if there's anything left of the woman I thought I loved. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Her gaze was fixed on me, a complex mixture of fear, regret, and something I couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps a flicker of defiance, or maybe just the dawning realization of the irreversible damage she had inflicted. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken accusations and the crushing weight of a shattered reality. The dawn was still a long way off, but the darkness that had descended upon our home felt absolute, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the truth, whatever it was, would leave us both irrevocably changed. And I wasn't sure I was ready for the next revelation. The silence in the room was heavier than any I had ever experienced, a palpable entity that pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Sarah's wide, tear-filled eyes were locked on mine, searching for something, anything, to grasp onto in the wreckage of our shared life. I watched her, my own heart a leaden weight in my chest, the echoes of my accusations still hanging in the air. I waited, my mind a chaotic storm of anger, disbelief, and a profound, gut-wrenching sorrow. She finally took a shaky breath, her voice barely a whisper, raw with emotion. There's nothing else to tell, Michael. You've seen it, you know. It wasn't planned. It happened. It spiraled, and I didn't know how to stop it, or hard fix it, without destroying everything, without destroying you. Her words, meant to soothe, only stoked the fire of my hurt. Destroying me, I repeated, the words laced with a bitter irony. You think this isn't destroying me? You think watching you confess to a 7-month affair is a gentle breeze? You stood here, Sarah, and you told me you felt stifled, that you needed to feel the wind. And you found that wind in Mark's arms. Because I wasn't enough, was I? My life, our home, it was all just too damn ordinary for you. My voice cracked on the last word, and I turned away, walking back to the window. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows across the lawn, turning our familiar suburban street into something alien and unsettling. This was supposed to be our haven, our sanctuary. Now it felt like a stage set for a tragedy. Ordinary, I muttered, shaking my head. I thought ordinary was good, Sarah. I thought stable, predictable, loving. I thought that was the goal, the prize.
For 12 years, I've worked my ass off to build this, to give you a life where you wouldn't have to worry about anything, where you could focus on your art, on yourself. And you're telling me that wasn't enough? That my steady presence, my devotion, it bored you? I heard her shift on the bed, the mattress creaking. It's not about being bored, Michael. It's about feeling alive, truly alive, like I was seen, like I mattered beyond just being your wife. Mark sees my art. He gets the struggle, the obsession. He doesn't just tolerate it, he celebrates it. He's part of that world. You're in your own world. And I love you, I do. But I felt like I was drowning in your quiet certainty, while he was the one throwing me a lifeline to the surface. Her explanation, while delivered with raw emotion, felt like a calculated deflection, a way to shift blame. A lifeline? I scoffed, turning back to her. My eyes swept over her, taking in the remnants of her made-up face, the smudged mascara under her eyes, the delicate curve of her neck. She looked vulnerable, broken, but I couldn't shake the image of her laughing with Mark, leaning into him, the image of her car parked 2 blocks from his studio. So this lifeline involved sneaking around, lying to me, and sleeping with another man for 7 months? That's your idea of feeling alive, Sarah? Because it sounds a hell of a lot like cowardice to me. It sounds like you were too afraid to face me, to talk to me, to admit you were unhappy in our own marriage. So you found a shortcut, a destructive, painful shortcut. It wasn't a shortcut, she insisted, her voice rising. It was a mistake, a terrible, escalating mistake. I kept thinking I could end it, that I could just pull myself out, but it became complicated. And then I was afraid of hurting you, yes, but also afraid of what I would lose, afraid of losing myself in the process. He made me feel seen, and I hadn't felt that from you in a long time, Michael. Not in that way, not about the art, not about the fire inside me. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Not felt seen by me? My voice was a low growl. After everything? After the late nights, the weekends spent helping you prep for shows, the endless hours I've listened to you talk about your passion, your struggles, you're telling me I don't see you, that I don't understand your fire? What the hell do you think I've been doing all these years, Sarah? Worshipping a statue? I've loved every inch of you, every facet. And if I haven't been celebrating your art in the same way Mark does, maybe it's because I was busy building a life for us, a life where your art could flourish without you having to compromise everything else. I walked towards the closet, my movements jerky, fueled by a rising tide of something I couldn't quite name. It was a toxic cocktail of betrayal, anger, and a deep, profound sense of loss. You know what? You're right. Mark understands your art. He understands your passion. What he doesn't understand, what he can't understand, is the foundation we built, the sacrifices, the compromises we both made, the sheer, unadulterated love that was supposed to be the bedrock of everything. You traded that bedrock for a fleeting feeling of validation from a man who probably sees you as nothing more than a muse, a temporary spark in his own mediocre existence. He doesn't, she cried, standing up abruptly, her eyes blazing with a mixture of hurt and defiance. You don't know him, Michael. You don't know him at all. He's not like you. He's not safe. He's impulsive. He's brilliant. And he sees the world in a way I've always craved. He challenges me. He makes me feel alive. And yes, I betrayed you. I know I did. And I'm so sorry. But you can't just dismiss him or what I felt with him as some shallow fling. It was real for me. It was a part of me that was dying. A part of you that was dying? I stopped, my back to her, my hands clenched into fists. The words dying and betrayal echoed in my mind. And the part of me that was supposed to be alive, Sarah? The part that loved you unconditionally? The part that trusted you with my entire life? What about that part? What about the vows we took? For better or for worse doesn't mean for 7 months with someone else and then maybe come back if I feel like it. I finally turned to face her, and the sight of her, standing there with tears streaming down her face, her body trembling, was both heartbreaking and enraging. She looked like a lost child, and yet she was a woman who had systematically dismantled our marriage. So what now, Sarah? I asked, my voice flat, devoid of the earlier fire. The anger had begun to recede, leaving behind a cold, desolate emptiness. You've confessed. You've offered your apologies. You've explained how your soul was yearning for artistic validation. Where do we go from here? Do we have a little chat over coffee? Do we book a couples therapy session to discuss your existential crisis and my complete failure as a partner? She flinched at my sarcasm, her gaze dropping. I don't know, Michael. I don't have answers. I just know that I've made a terrible mistake and I don't want to lose you. I want to try to fix this, if you'll let me. Let you? I let out a short, sharp laugh. Sarah, you didn't just make a mistake. You detonated a bomb. You didn't just make a mistake. You meticulously planned and executed a betrayal that has leveled everything we've ever been. There's no fixing this with a few apologies and a promise to do better. What you did, it changes everything. It changes us. There's no going back to before. I walked towards the bedroom door, my steps heavy. Max, sensing the tension, whined softly and followed me, nudging my leg. I looked down at him, his unconditional love a stark contrast to the conditional affection I had just received. I need space, Sarah, I said, my voice rough. I can't look at you right now. I
can't be in this room with you. Not tonight. Where will you go? She asked, her voice laced with panic. I shrugged, a gesture of helplessness. I don't know. I'll drive. I'll find somewhere to stay. I need to think. I need to breathe air that doesn't feel thick with your lies. I opened the door, the hallway light a stark, unwelcome intrusion. I didn't look back at her. I couldn't. I stepped out of the bedroom, out of our shared sanctuary, and into the vast, terrifying unknown. The click of the door closing behind me felt like the final punctuation mark on a chapter of my life that had ended in flames. As I walked down the hallway, the house felt eerily silent, the stillness amplifying the roar of my own internal chaos. My mind raced, replaying every moment, every word, every lie. The image of Sarah and Mark, their laughter echoing in my memory, was seared into my consciousness. I felt a profound hollowness, a gaping wound where my trust and love for her used to reside. I walked out of the house, the cool night air a shock against my skin. Max trotted obediently beside me, his presence a small, comforting anchor in the swirling storm. I got into my car, the familiar scent of leather and faint hint of stale coffee doing little to soothe the raw ache in my chest. I started the engine, the rumble of familiar sound that now felt alien. I didn't have a destination.
I just needed to drive, to escape the suffocating reality of our home, of Sarah, of the man I thought I was. As I pulled out of the driveway, the streetlights blurred into streaks of light. I passed by the neatly manicured lawns, the silent houses, the symbols of the life we had built, a life that now felt like a mirage. Each familiar landmark was a painful reminder of shared moments, of laughter, of dreams whispered in the dark. All of it tainted, all of it broken. Hours later, I found myself on a desolate highway, the kind of place where the sky was so dark, the stars seemed to pulse with an ancient, indifferent light. I pulled over to the side of the road, the crunch of gravel under my tires the only sound besides the ticking of my cooling engine. I turned off the ignition, plunging the world into a deeper silence. Max, who had been sleeping in the passenger seat, stirred and looked up at me, his tail giving a tentative thump against the leather. I leaned my head back against the headrest, the cool vinyl a stark contrast to the heat raging within me. The emotions were a chaotic mess, rage, yes, but also a crushing sadness, a sense of profound loss that went beyond just Sarah. It was the loss of the future I had envisioned, the loss of the man I thought I was, the man who believed in forever. 7 months, the number replayed in my mind, a relentless drumbeat of deceit. 7 months of me living in blissful ignorance while she was living a double life. 7 months of shared intimacy, of morning coffee, of sleeping beside her. All of it a carefully orchestrated lie. The sheer audacity of it, the calculated deception was almost incomprehensible. How could someone you loved, someone you had built a life with, live such a parallel existence without a shred of remorse, without a flicker of guilt? Or maybe there had been guilt. Maybe she had been torn. But the fact remained, she had chosen. She had chosen Mark, chosen the thrill, the validation, the feeling alive, over the quiet, steadfast love that had been her constant. And in doing so, she had irrevocably destroyed the foundation of our marriage. I thought about the moments she'd described, feeling stifled, feeling unseen. Had I missed something? Had I become so complacent, so absorbed in my own routines that I had inadvertently pushed her away? The question gnawed at me, a painful self-doubt that mingled with the anger. But even if I had missed signs, even if I had failed her in some way, it didn't excuse her actions. It didn't erase the betrayal. There were other ways to communicate, other ways to seek what she felt she was missing, ways that didn't involve shattering the trust of the person who loved her most. I closed my eyes, and the images flooded my mind. Sarah's face in the dim bedroom light, her confession spilling out like poison, the imagined scene of her laughing with Mark, the casual intimacy that spoke volumes, the quiet, familiar comfort of our home, now a hollow shell. The cinematic quality of the betrayal was almost too much to bear. It felt like a scene from a movie, a melodrama of broken promises and shattered dreams. But this was my life. This was my reality. I opened my eyes and looked at Max. He rested his head on my lap, his warm weight a small comfort. "You're a good boy, aren't you, Max?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. He licked my hand, his tail thumping softly. He didn't judge. He didn't betray. He just loved. The dawn was beginning to paint the eastern sky with pale hues of gray and pink. The world was waking up, oblivious to the personal devastation I was enduring. I knew with a chilling certainty that I couldn't go back. The woman I had married, the woman I had loved, was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen deception over honesty, fleeting passion over enduring commitment. What did I want now? Revenge? Closure? A way to undo the past? None of it seemed possible. All I had was the raw, gnawing pain, the confusion, and the daunting task of figuring out who I was without Sarah, without the life we had built. I started the car again, the engine roaring to life, a sound that felt like a defiance against the silence. I turned onto the highway, heading east, towards the rising sun. There was no grand plan, no epiphany, no easy answers. Just the open road, the quiet companionship of my dog, and the heavy, suffocating weight of a life irrevocably changed. The future stretched out before me, a blank canvas waiting to be filled. But for now, all I could feel was the echo of a love that had been extinguished, the residue of a betrayal that had left me adrift. This was the end of one story, and the beginning of another, a story I would have to write one painful, uncertain word at a time. The air in the car felt thinner now, as if the lies had been burned away by the approaching daylight, leaving behind a stark, unforgiving truth. And I was left to breathe it in, alone.